0.8.1 is gold shells for credits, guys. You're treading on very thin ice there. You know, it's like the first kiss. Was it good or bad? Depends on who you kiss, Yura. Doesn't matter. You'll still remember even if it was bad. I don't want to remember your first kiss.
People, can you hear me? 'Cause it's time, yes, it's time to be free.
Ладно, я могу со своей стороны.
Okay, I can share what I remember about the French vehicles when they appeared.
Всем, еще было.
We were simple players back then, so we made a clan and decided about how was the best way to play them.
То есть это ж по
It
факту,
was basically the first mechanic in the game.
такая, которая
The
отличалась.
first that was different from normal vehicles, and nobody knew what to do with them, and no one knew how to use them.
Было видно, как некоторые
We could see how some players would go forward and get destroyed in some stupid ways.
понять, что
They didn't understand what to do with them.
наоборот неистово.
Some were the opposite. They would dominate the game.
Вот просто из вот их вот.
And if you gathered a platoon of such players, you'd keep your plus 70% win rate.
Очень хорошо. Потом
It was great, but then they were nerfed greatly.
Я помню, что с точки
I
зрения,
remember that from the point of view of balancing, it was some unimaginable torture to figure out what was happening.
что
What were the stats, what stats were needed, where to look, where to go, what to change, and what to nerf.
двигаться, что изменять и что
Because back then, we didn't have much experience, and to be fair,
было.
there wasn't much data either.
На самом деле тоже не очень много.
Now there is much more to analyze.
раньше же
The statistics used to be collected once per month in Excel.
такое вот
There was this one Excel file that had the number of battles, the total win rate, and that's all.
суммарно, и все, и больше
Nothing more.
не было, да, и с этим
And we had to do something with that data.
решать.
Нет,
No, there was much more there. Not just the win rate. There was also average damage and average experience broken down to some extent. But yeah, it's not the same as it is now. Sure, but we still quickly came to the conclusion that we had to nerf them. The question was to what extent, and we didn't manage to do it the first try.
Да,
Yeah, about 6 months passed. Well, we were, so to say, cutting off one head at a time, as I recall. We'd cut off one, they'd still dominate, cut off another, they'd continue dominating. And so we just cut off some more. That's how it went.
Помню, я учился наоборот играть
I
против.
remember I was trying to play against the French vehicles, and it was quite all right to play against them with the E50 if you drove down a hill on Himmelsdorf.
Знаешь, особенно когда перки появились.
Especially when perks were added and controlled impact allow you to ram them for 900.
Короче, таранчиком.
The poor, fragile Frenchman could maybe survive 2 more shots, and then he was toast.
Вообще.
Там на самом деле много было очень...
Well, there were quite a number of different changes, and the perks were very influential and changed a lot.
Все поменяли.
Мне вот вот
I remember the introduction of perks by the pain in the back it was because at the time,
танков
I had about 100 vehicles and all of them needed their perk set.
сел на работе, что-то было.
I remember I had about 3 hours of time to spare, so I opened up the client and started clicking on all the crew member icons as I had to choose new perks, read about them, and figure everything out.
Это,
In short,
ужас.
it was horrible.
People, can you hear me?
Golden Joystick
I remember Golden Joystick very well,
тем, что это был
probably because it was the first time simple Belarusian boys and girls encountered upper-class life in London.
скажем так, жизнью высшего общества в Лондоне. На самом
During the ceremony, there was a very fancy setup.
деле, сетап, притушенный свет,
Dimmed lights,
еда,
expensive food, expensive furniture.
так вот выпадают наушники.
There go my earphones when I gesture too much.
И мужчины в смокингах.
Men in tuxedos and women in evening gowns.
Мы
And there was us from abroad.
сидели, сколько нам, не знаю, там, ну,
And we were 22, 23, maybe 25 tops.
по-быстрому
We
побегали.
made a quick run to the local H&M, brought ourselves the most budget-friendly formal jackets and trousers,
И
and got ready to receive the award.
когда сидели за столом,
And when we were at the table, we came to an agreement.
был
Victor was the idea generator, and he said
по
this.
одному выходит, один,
They're going on stage with only one representative from a company, maybe 2,
когда мы следующий
but we will all go together because we don't know when the next time we'll be at this ceremony. And as it turned out, we would get there the next year and twice more after that.
он best free.
So after we were announced as the best free-to-play or best MMO,
Одна из этих
I don't quite remember, to be honest.
человек,
We got in a group and all 6 of us rushed towards the stage.
какой-то десерт.
Someone got lost along the way, probably because they were eating some dessert. Come on, let's go. So
Передали
we
привет
went up, waved our hands, said hello to our parents,
всем, кому можно.
expressed thank you to everyone we could remember, and went to celebrate. Hey, everybody.
Приветствую, друзья.
Hello, friends. I am Victor Keesley, speaking from London.
Привет, танкисты.
Hello, tankers.
5 минут назад
5 minutes ago,
игра «Мир танков»
World of Tanks received the Golden Joystick as the best MMO of the year.
в номинации «Лучшее ММО года». Это самая
It's the most prestigious award in the gaming industry,
индустрии, и она
and it's ours.
наша. Она
But as a matter of fact,
ваша.
it's yours.
Мы получили
We received millions and millions of votes to support us.
Вы
You made this victory possible. A huge thanks to you. Hooray!
People, can you hear me?
Мы хотели как-то полностью
We wanted to make absolutely sure that our game was free
и можно
and that you could still get special shells without paying a penny, no matter if you were an enthusiast or an amateur player.
не платя ничего. Вот, и на этой почве, я помню, под этой всей там
I remember we started implementing gold shells for credits based on this premise.
числе.
Я помню два...
I remember the Object 268 that had 400-something of penetration with its heat shell, and you could just engage vehicles head-on.
Учитывая,
And back then, you had to search the forums for the blueprints of the IS-4 to figure out how to consistently penetrate it and learn about where to shoot its armor. There was nothing like guides. Everybody was figuring it out on the fly or shooting it from all angles in training mode. But here you could simply fire away and not think about all that. Of course, you would lose some credits, but the feeling it gave you.
Сербо-голда, на самом деле довольно...
Gold shells for credits was at about the same level as Sixth Sense in terms of influence.
Где-то очень недалеко.
Not the same, but probably in the ballpark. And they also changed the battle thanks to them being more open and accessible.
Более либеральные, более доступные.
Basically, everybody started shooting gold shells for credits.
Все.
потом конские...
Then the ridiculous penetration values were nerfed.
много.
I remember when Mikhail and I were discussing what to cut and were using those tables.
Голда...
Special shells nowadays just aren't the same as they were in 2013. As I said, they were simply imbalanced. You could have 150 base penetration and 250 to 300 for the special shell, which just changed everything.
Мы с тобой.
We were doing it together, weren't we? Yes. And I remember you... And there were multiple iterations, every update.
Ты мне подсовывал эти...
I remember you showing me those tables, and I was telling you what I liked and what I disliked.
И просто пытались...
We were just trying to do something that everyone could like. It was quite interesting, too.
Интересно.
У меня тогда был...
I had this thing back then that I was writing everything down on, and I'd show you all the pages.
Не,
Yeah, I remember Misha trying to run away from it.
я помню.
He'd look at it and say, I'll check it out later.
Было сложно.
It was hard for you to run away since we had our desks close together.
People, can you hear me?
Я пока расскажу.
Let me continue telling the story that Arthur started.
Да, помню этот.
I remember that trip to England. It was November. We were flying there to present the British vehicle branch as well.
Туда сначала,
And then we had Golden Joystick right away.
британской ветки танков. А потом у нас был сразу
We had been nominated, but we didn't know yet if we would get it or not.
получим, не
But we were invited to the conference.
Ну вот, то есть
The whole trip probably took about 10 days, and we were flying from Minsk in November.
вот. И мы летим в ноябре,
I took my suitcase, but I was lightly dressed so that I'd be comfortable on the plane.
чтобы в самолете комфортно было.
I just had a shirt and some light jacket or hoodie.
Ветровки.
Then my suitcase was lost and didn't make it with me.
Чемодан.
On top of that, they couldn't find it at all
Вообще
afterwards.
его не нашли.
And that was it.
Всё.
It had been lost along with all my clothes. It's probably still flying between countries.
Да, у меня там был...
Yeah, I had my press conference suit in it. You know, the tie and whatnot. The suit, the shoes, the tie, everything.
туфли, галстук.
And I had everything in the suitcase, all my warm clothes for the event, because I knew we'd be on a tank range where there would be dirt everywhere since it was November.
Полигоном, там,
And with rainy weather, nothing good would come out of it.
там ничего хорошего не будет. Вот.
So on the first day, my clothes were ruined and covered in dirt. We spent about the next 4 days there, and the temperature was about 6-7 degrees Celsius. My colleagues would share some clothes with me. In the end, I finally got to London.
По итогу мне
I had to get to the conference, and we would arrive about 3 hours before it started.
Вот, я приехал,
So I got there, went to the store right away, and spent my remaining money on a suit.
там, и переодевался уже в такси.
Then I got dressed on the way to the conference.
И
I
просто
just gathered the dirty clothes I had worn on the range and tossed them into a trash bin because they were absolutely unsalvageable.
невосстанавливаемые.
and I managed to get to the conference while changing my clothes in the cab with the driver. What an unforgettable experience.
В смысле?
What do you mean with the driver? Was he changing clothes too?
Таксист,
The driver was trying to look like he wasn't watching me change.
People, can you hear me?
Вместе с растягиванием до
Along with the expansion to Tier 10, a rebalance happened,
потом
if you could say that.
нерв, потом второй нерв.
Then there was a nerf, of course, then a second nerf, a third one, and then the Arty reached the higher tiers.
я играл
I was playing when Tier 7 was added. The GW Panther was my favorite vehicle ever. There were the Americans, sure, but I liked the German vehicles the most, and I didn't respect the other ones. I played only Germans, so I chose the GW Panther. I could simply drive around the map and just pop turrets off one after another without the artillery reticle. That was until the first nerf, when the accuracy of the gun was reduced. But the HP hadn't been cut just yet. So you could have 4 to 5 frags per battle with no sweat and enjoy your life. And then Tier 10s were added, and I researched all of them.
Самые
There were pretty mean French ones. French ones, yeah, but there were none back then. Then when the Lorraine appeared, it was absolutely wild, and I switched to it.
нее пересел.
То есть...
So you ditched the Germans and switched to the French.
Ну, в арте, да.
For Arty, yes,
Вот.
because I tried the GWE 100,
Сотку.
played 2 battles, then said, screw it, I'm not playing this anymore.
Ну его сразу.
Well, it was nerfed in the following update.
Когда мы
I
взвод-
remember we had a platoon of Lorraines and we'd bully heavies all around the map, driving together and pushing everyone into a corner.
загоняли.
Yeah, we did that too as a platoon. We'd go in as a platoon, but since we could rarely get 3 people, we used to drive with a colleague in pairs.
Вдвоем всегда.
And we even had this belief where if we had fewer than 7 frags between us per battle, it was a bad battle.
Фрагов на двоих.
A proper battle would start with 7 frags or more.
Всеми вы-
So it was a normal thing for us to have about 6 to 7 frags per battle on average.
Вспомнил, как мы.
I remember when we added British artillery, Sergei Berkatovsky rushed into the room shouting,
Кто на...
"Who balanced the bishop?"
Я так сижу.
I carefully raised my head and said, "I did."
Он говорит,
He asked, "Have you played it stock?" I replied, "I did." And he stated, "But it's unplayable."
Я говорю, ну...
I suggested, "Let me play 50 battles in it. If the win rate is about 50%, we don't change the stock setup."
Если...
So I spent the rest of the day playing 50 battles, and I probably have it in my statistics in the same state today at about 50% win rate.
Я остался, да?
And the next day I go and show Sergei saying, "Here you go, the bishop's playable.
Я говорю, вот. И
No need to change the stock one. The top one was already okay."
в топе он был, ну так, нормально.
People, can you hear me?
Помните, там же был помимо
I remember those years. I think it was in 2013 when the iconic VK3601H was nerfed to its final state
и
and
конь.
converted to a heavy.
В несколько
It was nerfed in several iterations.
У меня на
I
нем
still have a 78% win rate with it,
боев.
with about 1,500 battles.
Короче, и это
It
вообще
really was an iconic vehicle.
там.
Это же
It's a story about gold shell users.
Да. Там где у них
Yeah, it dealt more damage than a normal heavy would.
нормального снаряда.
165, if I remember.
Я помню. Ну вот. И
So you could do some real magic with it.
творить. Я помню такая.
I remember a cool story about when we were at E3.
E3. Там,
I think it was in 2012, and we had a competition there.
там было у нас
It was for everyone.
для всех игроков. Садись за
They could play on our PC, and the best player of the day would be the one with the most points.
да, больше всего
People would get a laptop,
ноутбук,
then an iPad, and so on and so forth.
получали различные призы.
Basically, they would get various prizes, and they were Americans.
Американцы, да, мы
We already had tested it on our range, in other words, the RU server,
в сервере
and
накатали.
everything was in order.
Ну вот, и я там стоял.
So there I was, watching
У
them.
них там что-то там было по
The points they earned were for experience, not for damage dealt, but for experience earned.
опыту ребят.
And they were getting about 1,600 to 1,700 experience, which was enough to get a laptop.
Я на это
I was just watching all this.
бои.
I had fought battles where I earned about 3 to 3.5 thousand experience.
Вот, и я,
So I told them,
давайте, может быть,
"Let me show you how to properly play the game."
я сел, короче.
And when I got there, they showed me on this main screen on our stage.
Там даже кто-то-
Someone was even streaming it all online.
Вот. Ну, я сел,
I got my VK ready,
там накатал, что
earned about 3,300 experience and 9 or 10 frags.
сделал. 9 или
I
10.
just dominated everybody there. And I said, "Come on, guys, it's easy."
Короче, потом ребята
Then the guys would use the same VK as I did the next 3 days at the expo, using the same setup as me.
короче, набивали.
People, can you hear me?
С вводом нового рендера
With the introduction of new rendering, we added new map-making technology.
новые технологии изготовления
This new tech made everything very pretty. But
добавлять
adding this greatly affected gameplay because those details were generally made of micro-terrain
там, где он
that was in places where it was needed and sometimes where it was not.
и потом занимались
It had been added everywhere, so we were smoothing it all out and removing unnecessary terrain. Smoothing everything out took a very long time over many years.
Внутри
Internally, it was called Operation Iron.
чужок, да, про программу.
Iron, as in iron out all the bumps on the map.
Да. Ну вот 8...
Yeah, it all went into 8.0. Either you jumped off a bridge, turned over, drowned, or some other nonsense.
Вот это вот все. Когда еще потом...
When you couldn't even drown because of 2 radio operators, I remember it was unlimited because of double operators. That was funny.
Вот это было смешно.
Ну, баги физики
I think the physics bugs will always be remembered fondly.
зарелизилась физика, был
I remember when physics was released, there was a bug for jumping, not falling.
выставлена неправильно.
If the wrong height was configured and you jumped a meter high, it thought you were already falling.
Мог убиться где-то.
So you could be destroyed in a very unexpected place if you were driving fast and bumped into something.
Ну, там же катапульты начали.
Those were catapults. They
Через...
called them catapults because they'd start throwing vehicles into the air and over buildings if you drove somewhere you weren't supposed to.
заехать. Тебя просто там...
You'd be thrown hundreds of meters high.
метров вверх.
I think a classic was the Siegfried line with its pillboxes.
Да-да-да, была ты...
Отдельно в картах.
Yeah, those pillboxes and other unbreakable objects could launch you to Kingdom Come.
Это было, конечно,
That was really funny back then.
прям. Причем народ весь...
And the coolest thing was that the players had fun.
Самое крутое.
When you found a bug like that, you didn't care if you were destroyed or not,
Игорь не помнит.
especially if you crushed someone. At least you got to fly.
People, can you hear me?
А деревья ж
The tech trees were rotated around that time, right?
Вот это вот знаменитое
You know, when the vertical trees became horizontal.
горизонтальное.
Миша, расскажи.
Misha, why did we decide to do that again?
Потому что мальчик пришел и говорит, я тут
Because a guy came to us and said, I see we have new vehicle branches planned for the future.
смотрел, что
I looked at them and the new vehicle branches don't fit our current interface. What do we do? We were like, oh, what do we do? Let's go to the UI guys. Then the UI guys were like, what do we do indeed? Well, this looks right, this doesn't. Let's rotate the tree. It will be ideologically right and ideologically convenient. Now we have about 2 or 3 branches per year, right? Back then, it was every update. Updates were coming out every couple of months. There was no end to them. A map and vehicles. A map and vehicles.
Да,
Yeah, I was configuring those vehicles and I didn't see the light of day. I was just working on one after another after another. I was like, my gosh, when will it end? Historical battles were also very...
веселый эксперт.
Yeah. Yes.
Ввели много.
We added many low-tier vehicles for the players to have something to play historical battles in.
Ну,
Well played.